are these people?
War with Iran. You're wondering what that might mean and why I have an Israeli flag coming for the Iranian flag. Well, bad stuff happened this week. So, as it seems to be doing every week. So, 7 people, including Iranian diplomats and an Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps senior commander, were killed in Israel's airstrike Monday on Tehran's consulate in Damascus. So, this is by Brett Wilkins, second time tonight. We've had him, and Consortium's picking him up and pushing him out there. So, as well as SharePost, I do believe, is doing the same. So I do believe he's an Indie Media Award honoree, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, he is.
You know, I'm sure Indy will remind me. This guy, I do believe, is also. But never in history has a state bombed another state's embassy and in a third country. In the last 12 weeks, Israel and the U.S. have attacked Iran, Russia, China, Syria, and Yemen. This is already a world war in all but name. So we'll let Richie explain what he means. If I do this and this.
The United States and Israel have declared war on Russia, China, and Iran, with Israel's attack on the Iranian embassy in the Syrian capital Damascus marking the most egregious and outrageous escalation in what is a world war in everything but name. It's no coincidence that attacks have taken place in Russia, Iran, China, Syria, and Yemen all at the same time. All these attacks are related to the war in Gaza and happened within a period of 12 weeks, with the same groups, Al-Qaeda and ISIS, claiming responsibility. What a surprise. What do both these groups have in common? It's their links to the United States and Israel. And isn't it funny that Al-Qaeda and ISIS never mention the war in Gaza? Where is their support for the resistance of their Muslim brothers against Israel and America? You know, at the start of this war, it was only Hamas. The next day, Hezbollah entered. Then it was Iraq, Yemen, and Syria. Now, it's no longer a regional war, but a global one. It is a world war in all but name. Have Russia, China, and Iran been attacked over their support for the resistance? In Russia, it seems the US are very unhappy that Putin was re-elected, or that in February, delegations of all the Palestinian factions, including Hamas and Fatah, were hosted in Moscow. And they're especially not happy that Putin crushed NATO in Ukraine, solidifying his victory with a new assault that the Western media don't seem to cover, or that the sanctions imposed by the West utterly backfired. The head of Russia's FSB said that US, UK, and Ukraine were behind the recent concert attack, and a new attack was foiled only days later. You know, if the US blew up the Nord Stream pipelines, and they did, and they attacked the Kremlin with drones, which they did, then what's to stop them from doing something like this? Putin is probably furious, and he should be, and I've no doubt his ire will exact revenge in good time. Next door in China, it's no secret the US have been waging an economic war for years out of jealousy over Beijing's technical and economic prowess. The US economic model has become obsolete. Many countries flock to join China's New Silk Road, BRICS, and the Shanghai Cooperation Organization. The US have tried to attack and undermine China using Hong Kong, Taiwan, Tibet, and AUKUS in the South China Sea. But what really has the Americans and Israelis angry is that Russia and China made a recent deal with the Houthis that guarantees the safety of their commercial ships, a large percentage of which pass through the Bab el-Mandeb Strait and the Red Sea. In exchange, Russia and China shall afford Yemen political protection at the United Nations Security Council. I mean, that's a deal. It's no surprise that the bomber behind the terrorist attack in China came from Pakistan, where the United States created Al-Qaeda. The US have always maintained a presence in the region to be close to Russia, China, and Iran. This is something that Prime Minister Imran Khan criticized, and then all of a sudden, he was removed as Prime Minister and thrown in prison. Israel's bombing of the Iranian embassy in Damascus has left at least 5 people dead and killed strategic partners in Syria's war on Al-Qaeda and ISIS. In addition, we had the January attack, which was the deadliest since the revolution, and on the anniversary of General Soleimani's assassination, who was killed by the Americans at Israel's behest. Iran refuses to recognize Israel, and the US have been trying to breach it ever since their puppet, the Shah, was deposed. Iran is the biggest, most vocal supporter of the resistance and has helped Hezbollah, Hamas, Yemen, and Syria to acquire sophisticated weapon systems and defend themselves. The same day of the terrorist attack, Israel assassinated the head of Hamas political bureau, Saleh Haruri, in Beirut, which further proves that Israel has a hand in all these attacks. As of late, Israel has been busy bombing deeper and deeper inside Lebanon and causing larger casualties to try and provoke Hezbollah into using their larger weapons so they reveal their hand. One overlooked aspect of the war are the Israeli attacks on Syria. And just now, one of the most lethal when Syria was bombed by Israel and attacked by Al-Qaeda simultaneously, resulting in the deaths of 40 Syrians. Not only was the timing suspicious, but we know for a fact that Israel have worked together with Al-Qaeda to try and overthrow the secular government of Syria.
You're happy to treat Al-Qaeda fighters, but not Hezbollah fighters?
We have a different account with Hezbollah. Al-Qaeda, to the best of my recollection, has up to now not attacked Israel.
But it's attacked your #1 ally and protector and sponsor, the United States of America. There is a quote-unquote war on terror being going on for 15 years.
While the UK and US are bombing Yemen, it now turns out the Americans are building a secret airstrip on the Yemeni island of Socotra. Yemen's blockade has been very successful, striking 86 ships and now extending all the way to the Indian Ocean. Out of the blue, now Al-Qaeda have resurfaced, reactivated in the rear, fighting with other factions and announcing a new leader. What a coincidence. This is naught but an attempt by the Americans and Israelis to open another front on the Yemenis because they successfully blocked their ships. ISIS and Al-Qaeda are the mobile armies of the Americans and Israelis. When they're disgruntled or unhappy, they set their dogs loose to carry out terrorist attacks, create instability, and undermine the security of other nations, particularly those they've been unable to breach or control, like Syria, Russia, or Iran. Because they're unable to win using conventional methods, they use proxies and terrorist groups to assault these governments and to try and loosen their grip on power. The terrorist attacks in Russia, China, and Iran are unprecedented, and they mark an escalation in the confrontation between the West and global South.
Any questions? No.
Goddamn.
Yep.
Good.
Yep, he kind of is. There's a lot of stuff I didn't know on there, but very good. So, to continue with Brett Wilkins' article, Iranian and Syrian officials on Monday accused Israel of bombing Iran's consulate in Damascus. I love how it's accused. You know, they did. An attack one expert called a war-abetting escalation that U.S. President Joe Biden claimed he was preventing in the Middle East.
You know, go back to the article?
What? Yeah.
That was the article.
There you go. 7 people, including Iranian diplomats and Islamic Revolutionary Guard Corps Senior Commander General Mohammad Reza Zahidi, was killed in the airstrike, which, according to the BBC, occurred at approximately 5 p.m. local time and flattened the multi-story building adjacent to the Iranian embassy in the Syrian capital Meza district. Iranian Foreign Minister Hussein Amir Abdullahian described the strike as a violation of all international obligations and conventions. Faisal Mekdad, his Syrian counterpart, condemned what he called a heinous terrorist attack. Israeli officials declined to comment on the attack. Israel has increased airstrikes targeting IRGC and Hezbollah militants inside Syria since the Hamas-led October 7th attacks. What? Allegedly.
Israeli officials declined to comment on the attack?
Yes.
Comment on everything, and yet they have nothing to say about this?
No. Israeli strikes against Hezbollah have also killed hundreds of militants and civilians in Lebanon. In case you were wondering. Hamdira Azizi, a visiting fellow at the German Institute for International and Security Affairs, called the consulate attack a significant escalation in tensions. The attack is viewed by some in Iran as a declaration of war by Israel against Iran. Azizi wrote on social media, it represents a shift from previous engagements directly hitting Iranian soil, represented by its consulate in Syria, as opposed to targeting IRGC's officers in Syrian sites. In earlier stages, Israel would refrain from targeting IRGC officers, only proxies and arms shipments. He continued, since the Gaza war, a shift was already there to target high-ranking Iranian commanders. Some sources claim the attack was a response to an assault on an Israeli ship last night at the port of Eilat, attributed to Iraq militias. Yes, this Eilat, gotcha. This suggests another new rule of engagement by Israel, direct retaliation against Iran for any attacks by its proxies. Azizi
Eilat is a port city that has been devastated. Eilat is a port city that has been devastated by the Yemeni attacks. Literally, like 80% of their commerce was coming from travel through the Indian Ocean, and that's been cut off. So they're dying. So go ahead.
Azizi added that the strike is also seen as a message to both Iran, al-Assad's regime in Syria, Israel's capability and willingness to escalate its response to the presence of Iranian forces in Syria. Numerous experts, including Azizi, wondered whether Israel informed the United States ahead of the attack. A White House spokesperson said that Biden is aware of reports attributing the strike to Israel and that his team is looking into it. Shrita Parsi at the Quincy Institute for Responsible Statecraft said on social media that this is the exact type of conduct that usually prompts the U.S. to label a country a pariah or rogue state. So
that's Israel said that.
Yeah, exactly.
No, Iran. He's talking about it. Well, yes, but Iran is what's going to happen. They'll turn around and label Iran that way.
Yep. So Max Blumenthal, the U.S. UN delegation, just issued a full-throated defense of Israel's brazen attack on Iran's sovereign diplomatic facility, accusing Iran of harboring terrorists in its consulate in Damascus. This was also a defense of the shredding of the UN Charter. In the post-World War II international order, the U.S. rep added an unbelievably ironic call for Iran to exercise restraint. So here it is. We'll watch this. Let's full screen and action.
Pentagon's assessment that this was an Israeli strike. Have you all been in touch with the Israelis about this?
We were not notified before the strike occurred. We have been engaged with them at different levels, but again, this was not a U.S. military strike, so I don't have a lot of the details on it.
But you have been engaging with them after the fact to discuss specifically their attack on this building in Damascus.
We have engaged with them on various different levels, not to mention some of the questions about the humanitarian aid workers that were also killed in the strike in Gaza. Tom.
Thank you. Does the U.S. plan on...
Any questions?
She's terrible. Like, again, well, intersectional imperialism, folks. All right? Because now if you criticize her, you're criticizing her nationality.
Yep.
And she looks like she's from that region potentially. So that makes it a lot more difficult to potential. I mean, I don't give a shit. She's defending monstrosity. Just like, Caitlin Johnstone, I listened to her thing this morning or yesterday. She referred to spokesman Matt Miller. She called him Count Smugula, which is just perfect.
Very good.
Between him and the heavyset dude, the Latino dude, and the John Kirby, like these people, God bless them, for standing up there and saying the worst shit with a straight face, as if they're just Like it's just what they have to do today. And it's like, Jesus Christ,
Well,
man.
they get paid to do that, so
Yeah, I know they get paid to do that, but they still have to live with themselves for the rest of their lives afterwards. Like, come on. There's only so much money. Like, money can only do so much when it comes to living with yourself, for championing and for whitewashing the extermination of children.
Mm-hmm. Well, the U.S. accuses such states of seeking to destroy the rules-based order, Parsi noted, but so far Biden has acquiesced to Israel's conduct in the area, as well as all other aspects of Israel's slaughter in Gaza. Parsi accused Israel of seeking
rules-based order, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
Rules-based order is another way of saying U.S. and UK supremacy.
Yes.
It was getting away from the multipolar world. Right? Mm-hmm. Rules-based order. Well, who sets the rules?
Yeah. Parsi accused Israel of
just reading that,
seeking to either destroy these norms or create a new normal in which it, much like the U.S., will be untouchable above these laws and norms. He's also called the Damascus strike the kind of war-abetting escalation Biden claimed he was preventing. The U.S. has also bombed Syria, as well as Yemen, Iraq, and Somalia since October 7th. And here's Fee to remind us that this is huge. Israel will not be able to keep terrorizing everyone without consequences. You want to see some of those consequences? At Uphold Reality, China blasts Israel at the UN. This is a grave violation of the UN Charter, right? So to allow impunity for such reckless acts would send a serious wrong signal and would encourage even more risky acts. The red lines of international law and the basic norms of international relations has been breached time and time again. So here's China, you know, they're here at the UN.
China.
They're gonna tell us.
Madam President, yesterday the Iranian diplomatic premises in Damascus, Syria, were hit by an airstrike, causing the death of 7 Iranian personnel and severe damage to the premises. This is a grave violation of the UN Charter and international law, and a breach of the sovereignty of both Syria and Iran. This attack is of an extremely vicious nature. China strongly condemns this attack. 25 years ago, China's embassy in Yugoslavia was bombed by a US-led NATO airstrike, resulting in personnel casualties and damage to the embassy. We feel the grief and pain of the Iranian government and people, and express our deepest sympathy and condolences to the Iranian government and people. In accordance with the Vienna Convention on Diplomatic Relations and the universally recognized basic norms governing international relations, the safety and security of diplomatic missions is inviolable. To allow impunity for such reckless acts that lack any baseline would send a seriously wrong signal and would encourage even more risky acts. We take note of the solemn protests and condemnations against Israel raised by Iran, Syria, and other Arab countries. We hope that Israel will respond to them. Madam President, since the Gaza conflict broke out in October last year, we have witnessed attacks on homes, attacks on schools, attacks on hospitals, attacks on humanitarian facilities, attacks on UN agencies, and today, attacks on diplomatic premises. The red line of international law and the basic norms of international relations has been breached time and again, and the moral bottom line of human conscience has been crushed time and again. Such a situation, such a tragedy must stop immediately. Last week, the Council adopted Resolution 2728, calling for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. We strongly call on the international community to work together to ensure that this resolution is implemented so that the Muslim community will not have to celebrate the month of Ramadan in the midst of gunfire. At present, the ground situation in Gaza is deteriorating with rising spillover risks And the situation in the Middle East has become ever more precarious. Israel's frequent cross-border strikes against targets in Syria and Lebanon are a serious violation of the sovereignty, independence, and territorial integrity of the countries concerned, and have aggravated tensions throughout the region. Such provocative actions
leading the
might
world.
trigger greater turmoil and jeopardize the security of the entire region. Such actions must stop immediately. China calls on all parties, especially countries with important influence on Israel, to play a constructive role and to make concrete efforts to bring about an immediate ceasefire in Gaza and to ease tensions and restore peace and stability in the Middle East at an early date. Thank you, President.
Wait a minute. Doesn't China have some influence over Israel too?
China.
Just asking.
I mean, it's probably got a few. I mean, it's saying that it was putting pressure, so, you know. So, but anyway.
What that really is that's yelling at the U.S. and the U.K. effectively, because they're the ones who have been standing in the way, blocking it, sending arms, sending troops, sending support to Israel, and not stopping Israel from blocking the humanitarian aid that was coming in from UNRWA, accepting the premise and the contention that anyone in UNRWA was a terrorist or was an active member of Hamas working against Israel. I mean, everybody's just sitting there wringing their hands and talking while Israel's murdering people.
Yeah.
And I think this is what Israel knows.
Yeah, I mean, they can afford to get away with it because they know they can. Because
no one
is stop them.
Doing any, like the UN hasn't.
The only one that's going to stop them are us, who's funding them and funding them and arming them. It's either us or somebody has to then fight us and them to try to put a stop to it.
Yep.
To fight the Israeli army, to fight the IDF in Gaza in defense of, and where is, and look, this is the one argument I get from the Zionists. Where is every other Arab country in the world? Why are they not going near Gaza or at least trying to mount some type of a defense on behalf of this
Yemen
Muslim population?
And what's happening with them? They're getting attacked by Israel.
But not in Gaza. But there's 27 countries that have armies and militaries, Reef.
You want them to walk into Israel?
This is one of the things that the Zionists...
I mean, sure.
That's what the Zionists effectively are. They're almost asking for, but no, they do it in reverse because they say, well, why won't those countries take the Palestinians in, even though they all did and have?
That's the problem.
But they also don't want to. They also don't want to acknowledge Israel to accept them, because then it's acknowledging Israel and that they stole the land and that everybody's okay with that now, which they're not and never have been.
They're willing to bomb Iranian soil because they might house some Palestinian, like already. So what happens if you push them into Egypt? They're just going to go into Egypt and go, well, you've got, black
but
sun
also
terrorists and
also remember the BB map that he put out where he called parts of Syria and Lebanon were the original the original borders is what he's telling. He wants it all, and he's going after and targeting those two specific countries because he wants to destabilize them, and that's where I think he's, at least for Israel's perspective, they're going to let the U.S. fight the Yemen thing because it's also affecting international trade and it's fucking with our money, and to us, that's the golden goose. You don't fuck with the golden goose.
Well,
it's why Britain is flipping out and sending support too. Go ahead.
Well, Palestinian Policy Network fellow Tarek Kinney Shawa said that what the Biden administration means by taking every measure to avoid regional escalation is that they're making sure only Israel is allowed to escalate, deploying aircraft carriers, airstrikes in Yemen, Syria, and Iraq. All of that is to make sure Israel can provoke, but no one can respond. While Parsi wondered if Israel attacked Iran's consulate, its sovereign territory, to elicit a response to justify a larger war, antiwar.com editor Dave DeCamp went further, accusing Israel of trying to provoke a war with Iran to get the U.S. directly involved. Friend of the show?
Well, yeah, it makes sense because, I mean, Israel is nothing without our money and our weapons. So, yeah.
Which is exactly
and
what we were saying.
We will benefit because, you know, that's money for us. So, yeah.
Yep. Iranian journalist Mona Hojat Ansari wrote for the Tehran Times that the far-right government of Prime Minister Netanyahu believes that by plunging the region into a maelstrom of chaos and entangling, the United States is in another pointless war in West Asia that would drain American resources. It may find a chance to survive as an apartheid establishment. The attack on Iran's consulate should particularly raise a red flag for Washington, she added, as it demonstrates Israel's readiness to ignite the entire region, even if that means that the U.S. and all its traditional allies in the region would suffer devastating consequences. So, any questions? I mean...
So, World War III, anyone?
Pretty much.
We're fucked.
Damn straight.
Yes.
So, yeah.
We're fucked.
Yep. I can't even, you know, like there's so much involved with this bullshit. So
we're encouraging all of this. We're funding it. We're actively stoking it. We've done it. How much of this is because of military contractors pushing all of this also from behind the scenes, just like they did in Ukraine?
Oh God, yeah.
Mm-hmm. So,
like, you know, I mean, we've said it on the show many times, and I'm sure you've mentioned this on How Do We Miss That? Like, if Hillary was president, like, we've been wrapping up in wars by now. You know, like, and probably still a lot of them will probably still be.
Oh, it would have been here faster.
All of that would have been here sooner. That's the idea with Ukraine. It would have
done Ukraine.
Yeah.
They'd have done Ukraine in 2017.
Yeah.
Like, Trump fucked up 100%. Their plan, so now, like, Biden.
Well, and Trump with the Abraham Accords fucked up their plans too, to a point. They want there to be conflict, you know, to a point. Like, it's nice when everyone kind of gets along. That's not where the military contractors and everybody else, you know, keeps everybody employed. And that fear mongering is what keeps everybody in line. You remove that fear, they stop spending the kind of money on defense and on the bases and on the weaponry and everything else that they're spending it on, the salaries, the jobs program that it effectively is.
Yeah.
But we don't have enough money for our you know, early childhood education and to fund the educators, the teachers themselves. There's about to be a huge crisis in this country because of all of the subsidies and stuff that has been going to early childhood education. That's drying up.
It's cut.
Yep. And
again, that's what I just talked about in the last segment. That's what my mayor is cutting. So that's why I'm going to be doing a testimony on. And again, I wasn't planning to do it, but in light of that, I had to switch up my testimony during the day, when I was working with kids, like, to give it tomorrow. But I think it's just the idea of, like, and I said this earlier today, you know, like, we're eagerly giving money to defense, you know, /war /police easily, but we're not able to figure out healthcare. We're not able to figure out education. We're not able to figure out infrastructure. Like, our country is fucking falling apart, but we're somehow able to find money in our coffers for war.
East Palestine, how about like literally East Palestine, the shit, fucking the Dali and Baltimore and the fucking, you know, the Key Bridge. I mean, infrastructure is falling apart. Yes, and again, Israel needs theirs. So because of this, why? Why are we funding it?
Why? Oh,
Why?
not aliens. It's not aliens.
No,
Shit.
no. Why? I was waiting for the Joe Biden why. Why?
That's
why?
That's not. First of all, that is not Joe Biden, sir. That is like
How do I
Creflo
always think that
Dollar
it was?
or some shit because of like just Southern pastor.
Why?
Oh.
Why? Why?
Okay.
Why? Why?
Wow.
Why?
Yeah, it sounds like that definitely sounds like creepy,
Biden.
sleepy, handsy Uncle Joe,
Yeah,
right?
it's not- it's
Am I not
that.
wrong?
It's
Am I not wrong? Thank you. Okay.
Is
Yeah.
I've
Creflo
always thought that
Dollar?
was Joe Biden.
It's someone like
I had
that.
no
I'll look
idea.
up exactly who it is, but it's not Biden.
Okay.
There's video
it's not
of it.
Creflo Dollar.
No, but it's someone in the same, like some televangelist, you know?
Okay.
So, but yeah. Anyway.
Oh, I think I know.
Okay.
I think I know who it is.
Yeah.
I'll look
yeah.
it up. I think I know who it is. Like this just shows
Speaking
you.
of televangelizing,
We're all
if
old.
you need the prosperity, you must give us more prosperity so that we must prosper unto you. Amen.
No.
Amen.
Oh my God. You
You
should
go to
let Collin at least do that. Come on, man.
/Indie News Network or scan the QR
I was just wrong
Put it
on
on your
so many
screen.
levels.
I don't have that cadence.
to proselytize. To stop the devil, you
Man,
must
somebody
give
grew
us
up in
your
black
cash.
churches.
I definitely grew
I
up
didn't
around
really
them.
grow up
Did you-
in- I didn't really grow up in black.
Did you go
church.
to Baptist church? Did you go to a Baptist church?
Me?
like
once or
very
twice.
briefly, very brief?
Well, they never asked you to like and subscribe. That would be a little weird, you know, if they asked you to like and subscribe
this
or to
is the
share
sign
and
that,
comment,
like,
you know.
that's
Or
the stuff
help
we
us-
never hear about as Jews. Like,
Please,
all
can
the-
the congregation help us get 2K subscribers? We are at 1.8, about to be at 1.9. Please, if you would be so generous, put that subscription in the collection plate. Amen.